Welcome back to the DRS Zone. If you're listening to this, you can probably still feel the heat radiating off the asphalt in Sakir.
Oh.
We are fresh off the Friday session of the 2026 preseason testing in Bahrain. And honestly,
Go on.
the temperature on track was brutal, but the performance we just witnessed, that was significantly hotter.
It wasn't just hot, it was a statement. I mean, we aren't talking about a casual shakedown or some, nice Sunday jive here.
Not at all.
We are looking at a tectonic shift in how a specific team is approaching this season.
Exactly. Let's not bury the lead here. I want to drop a number on you right now, and I want you to really let it sink in.
Okay.
779 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
That is 144 laps.
In one single day.
Yes, in one day.
To put that in perspective for everyone, because those numbers can sound, a little abstract, a standard Grand Prix distance is roughly 305 kilometers.
Wow.
So what we saw on Friday was Franco Colapinto driving almost 3 full Grand Prix distances back to back to back.
In less than 10 hours. It's absolutely insane volume. I mean, think about driving your road car for 10 hours straight. You'd be exhausted.
Oh, completely.
Now imagine doing it while pulling 5Gs in the corners and managing a hybrid power unit at 300 kilometers an hour.
It is a physical and mental marathon. This wasn't just practice. This was an endurance run. And it sets up the narrative perfectly.
It really is.
This is the story of how Franco Colapinto and Alpine went from an absolute nightmare on Wednesday to what looks like a dream run on Friday.
And we are not just going to read you the lap times today. We're going to tear apart the telemetry of this success because there is so much hidden under the hood of that P6 finish.
There really is. It's about reliability, it's about psychology, and it's about the machine itself.
So buckle up. Let's get into it. The marathon in the desert.
Let's start with that physical feat you mentioned, 144 laps. When you look at the broader context of Alpine's week, that number becomes even more staggering.
It does.
We have the data for the full 3 days of testing, right?
Right. Over those 3 days, the entire Alpine team, so both drivers, all sessions, completed a total of 318 laps.
Okay, so wait, let me do the math on that. If the team did 318 total, and Colapinto did 144 on Friday alone.
You're seeing it? Colapinto generated nearly half of the entire team's data for the week in just his one session.
That is a massive workload disparity.
That is wild. It almost feels like they put the entire weight of the engineering department on his shoulders for that one day.
They did, and you have to ask, why does that matter so much? Is it just about bragging rights for fitness?
No.
No, it's about correlation.
Correlation, that is the magic word in F1.
It is. In F1, you spend all winter building a car in a wind tunnel and on a computer. You have these perfect mathematical models. But you never know if the real world matches your math until you hit the track.
You need the data to prove it.
You need data points.
Good.
By doing 144 laps, Colapinto basically handed the engineers at Enstone a goldmine of data to check against their sims.
And it wasn't just, driving around waving at the crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, testing can just be installation laps.
Far from it. This wasn't about glory runs, which is when a team puts on the softest tires and an empty fuel tank just to top the leaderboard.
Right, for the sponsors.
Franco himself called these runs laboratories.
Laboratories. I like that. It sounds scientific, methodical.
It's the perfect word. Each lap was a stress test for the new A526 chassis. They were checking airflow. They were checking thermal degradation.
Thermal degradation being how the tires and the engine handle the heat over time, correct?
Exactly. When you do a long run, you see how heat builds up everywhere, how the tires lose grip lap after lap. In a sport where track time is the most scarce resource, that volume of information is critical.
It reminds me of something Steve NIELSEN, the sporting director at Alpine, said. He made this really interesting point, calling Colapinto a human sensor.
That's such a critical distinction. We live in an era of big data, We have sensors on everything.
Oh, everywhere. Brakes, suspension, exhaust.
But a sensor can tell you a temperature. It can't tell you how the car feels.
Right, a sensor gives you a number, not a sensation. It doesn't get scared when the rear end snaps on you.
Precisely. NIELSEN is saying Colapinto was deciphering behavior vibrations, little handling quirks that the screens weren't showing. He was the bridge between the mechanical and the digital.
And they needed that bridge desperately, because let's rewind just 48 hours. You can't appreciate Friday without looking at the horror show of Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday was the low point. Absolute disaster.
The car just died, right? Turn 8 hairpin.
Dead in the water. He only completed 28 laps that day. When you're a young driver trying to prove yourself and the car just shuts down, that is psychological torture.
And everyone watching thought, here we go again, another Alpine engine failure.
The Alpine curse, people were whispering it. But here's where it gets really interesting. Nielsen actually admitted something fascinating about that failure.
What was it?
It wasn't the engine blowing up, it wasn't a mechanical breakage, it was paranoia.
Paranoia, like the car was afraid.
That's honestly the best way to describe it. It was software paranoia. Modern F1 cars are programmed with these aggressive fail-safes. If the computer thinks the engine is about to explode, it cuts the power to save the hardware.
So it's like a nervous parent pulling the plug on the video game because they thought they smelled smoke, but it was just toast in the kitchen.
Exactly that. Nielsen called it a procedural error, not a mechanical failure. The systems were set to be so conservative that the moment the software saw a tiny anomaly, it just shut the whole car down.
Wow. So the car wasn't broken, it was just scared.
Essentially, they went into the code, told the car, it's okay, don't panic, and look at the result. Friday morning alone, he did 64 laps to make up for it, an exemplary recovery.
It really is. And that recovery puts them on the leaderboard in a place I don't think many people expected. Let's talk about the shock of P6.
The raw numbers tell a story. George Russell and the Mercedes leading the pack, 1.33.918. Merck looks strong. But you scan down the list, Franco Colapinto, P6, with a 1.36.874.
A 1.36.8 is respectable. But in testing, we always say times can be deceptive because of fuel loads, right? We don't know if they were full or empty.
That's true. We never know the exact load, but we can judge based on the company he's keeping on that timesheet. It's who he is ahead of that makes you do a double take.
He's ahead of Carlos Sainz in the Williams,
Yep.
ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto in the Audi, and technically, and we have to use that word carefully, he finished ahead of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull.
Now, seeing an Alpine ahead of a Red Bull, that requires a lot of context.
Okay, we have to address the elephant in the room. Is Verstappen in trouble, or is Red Bull just playing games?
Max did 61 laps. The word is he might be in a bit of technical denial about the RB22.
Technical denial. You mean they're pretending a problem doesn't exist?
Yeah, kind of struggling to find the sweet spot. Or, what's more likely is they are sandbagging heavily.
For those new to testing jargon, sandbagging is when you deliberately drive slower than you can.
Yeah. Exactly. Heavy fuel, engine turned down. You hide your true speed. Red Bull rarely shows their hand this early. But even so, for Alpine to be in the same zip code is a victory.
For me, the real comparison isn't even Red Bull. It's McLaren.
Precisely. Oscar Piastri.
Colapinto is less than 0.4 of a second behind Piastri. Now, McLaren is the benchmark for the best of the rest, maybe even a title contender.
So if the Alpine is within that window,
That's the metric for optimism.
it changes the conversation completely. It goes from, are they going to survive, to, are they going to compete? And you have to contrast that with the teams that are actually struggling. Look at Cadillac.
Oh man, Bottas was just stuck.
Stuck in the garage for 2 hours, 37 laps total for him in the morning. That's painful.
Yep.
And Aston Martin, Lance Stroll was way off the pace. In comparison, Alpine looked bulletproof on Friday.
So we have the numbers, but let's talk about the feeling, the machine itself. The A526 versus the ghost of 2025, which was the A525. That old car was, well, it was a tractor.
It was worse than a tractor. It was unpredictable. But the 2026 regulations have changed the game. The ground effect rules have been tweaked.
Let's clarify ground effect for a sec. That's the aero concept where the floor of the car sucks it down to the track, creating a vacuum.
Correct. But the problem in recent years was porpoising, where the car would bounce violently up and down.
Yeah, it destroys the driver's confidence and probably their back.
Exactly. But looking at the A526, the porpoising seems to be history. What's crucial here is that Colapinto can now attack the curbs, the pianos as they call them.
The pianos, the red and white painted curbs on the apex.
Right. In a ground effect car, you are usually terrified of curbs. You hit them too hard, you lose grip, and you spin. But Colapinto was riding those curbs aggressively. The A526 tolerates it. It just absorbs the impact.
So the suspension is compliant, it's doing its job.
The suspension and the chassis stiffness. The old car would have snapped him off the track. This new chassis is a stable platform, and that's key, because even Pierre Gasly was struggling the day before.
Gasly had a very hard day on Thursday. Said he couldn't find the balance.
And that's where Colapinto's marathon comes in again. What he did on Friday wasn't just for him. His feedback, acting as that human sensor, helped smooth out those technical rough edges for the whole team.
That is huge for a driver still proving his place. But it wasn't a perfect day. We got to be objective. Let's talk about the incident.
The mistake.
Late on Friday, right at the end, he had an off.
He did. And for a newer driver, that can be a confidence killer. You do 140 laps perfectly, and then you bin it at the end. It ruins the whole story.
But the reaction from the team wasn't what you'd expect, right? I didn't see anyone throwing headsets.
No. The vibe at Alpine right now is reconstruction. Steve NIELSEN didn't tell him to slow down. He wants more pressure. He wants them to find the limit.
It's that old racing adage. I'd rather have a fast driver I need to calm down than a slow driver I need to speed up.
Exactly. And Colapinto didn't hide from it. He called the sessions hard. He admitted they only had a few clean shots at lap times. He focused on the learning. And he kept acknowledging the mechanics.
That internal loyalty.
It matters so much. When you wreck a car, the mechanics are the ones staying late to fix your mess. By acknowledging them, he's building capital. He's becoming a leader.
It's a fascinating dynamic.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to pause our analysis for just a second for a mandatory update.
Go ahead.
Just a reminder to our listeners that this segment is part of our news coverage of recent F1 events and reflects the data available as of the Bahrain test.
Right. And looking at that coverage, the schedule ahead is brutal.
It really is. We have 3 more critical days coming up fast.
The next test is February 18th to the 20th. This is what they're calling the fire test.
The fire test. That sounds ominous.
It's how the paddock views it. The goal shifts now. The laboratories phase is mostly done. Now it's about pure performance.
So we're going to see them turn the dial up.
They have to.
Yeah.
They need to drain the fuel tanks to qualifying levels, maybe just a few laps of fuel, and turn the engine mapping to aggressive.
So the question is, can Alpine actually fight in the upper midfield? Or will the pressure crush them when they turn it up to 11?
That is the big question. We know the car is reliable. We know it doesn't shut down because of software paranoia, but is it fast enough to hold off an Aston Martin? To chase a McLaren?
It feels like the era of survival for Alpine is over. For the last year, they were just trying to get a car to the grid. Now they have a machine that doesn't break when you look at it wrong.
And a driver in Colapinto who treats a 779-kilometer drive like a warm-up.
It's a pivotal moment.
It is. Colapinto has a saying that I think defines this whole test. The limit is only found when you cross it.
And he definitely crossed it Friday evening when he went off track.
He did. But that's the point. If you aren't crossing the line in testing, you don't know where the line is. You're leaving time on the table. He found the edge.
I love that. It's bold. It's aggressive. It's exactly what F1 needs.
So here's my final thought for everyone listening. We focus so much on aerodynamics, on side pods, on DRS. But after watching Friday, I have to ask, in 2026, is bravery going to be worth more than aerodynamics? Because Colapinto is driving with a level of aggression that suggests he thinks the driver can still make the difference.
That is something to chew on until the lights go out. Listen, the season is ramping up, and you do not want to miss a single apex of this coverage. We're breaking down every session, every lap.
You need to be following DRS Zone right now.
Find us on TikTok for the quick clips, Instagram for the visuals, and YouTube for the full breakdowns. We are everywhere you are.
The fire test is coming. Don't blink.
Keep your foot down. We are out.